Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Today we will be talking about Pseudomonas and Burkholderia. Last time in our lecture, just as a review, we discussed the family Enterobacteriaceae. We were able to finish the lactose fermenters and the non-lactose fermenters. So for the lactose fermenters, we emphasized E. coli, and then for the non-lactose fermenters, we were able to discuss your Salmonella, Yersinia, and Shigella. So that was the last part. We're moving on today to Pseudomonas or Cloderia. And this will be part of the exam. I already shared with in the Google Classroom the notes for Pseudomonas and Burkholderia. And so you have the material already. We also have another topic that is covered during this period, which is your Taylorelia and your Haemophilus. And unfortunately, we won't have enough time to discuss this part, your Taylorelia and the Haemophilus, but we will run down or go through the slides maybe. Hopefully, maybe Taylorelia will be able to discuss. But the Haemophilus, maybe we won't have enough time. So you will, I provided the material, but you will be responsible for reviewing the material. It will still be included in the exam. Okay? So is that clear? Yes. Okay, so let's start our discussion with Pseudomonas and Burkholderia. So remember, we are now in the gram group of bacteria, right? And both of these are part of the gram-negative bacteria. They are considered as aerobes. So our first species is your Pseudomonas aeruginosa. So this is the most important species in the genus Pseudomonas, no? Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Within Pseudomonas, there are over 200 species, but you only need to remember one, which is aeruginosa. It's considered a non-fastidious organism, which means that it will be very easy to grow in the laboratory. It's very easy to isolate. And many diseases associated with Pseudomonas in veterinary medicine is within the species Aeruginosa. No? Now, there are two Pseudomonads that have now been moved to the genus Burkholderia. So previously, in your horses, there and other species pa rin, Pseudomonas pseudomallei and Pseudomonas mallei, they were considered as belonging to the genus Pseudomonas. But recently, the genetic information that we have and their classification based on these their phylogeny, we will not they will now be classified, or they are now classified as genus Burkholderia. So later on, after we discuss Pseudomonas, we'll go to the topic of Burkholderia. These will be Burkholderia pseudomallei and Burkholderia mallei. Okay, but previously Pseudomonas. Yeah. Pseudomonas is rarely involved in primary disease, but they are extremely important in clinical medicine, mostly because a lot of the secondary bacterial diseases, for example, or some bacterial diseases that are seen in immunocompromised patients, they are due to Pseudomonas aeruginosa. So this is difficult to eliminate when contamination occurs, no? So here we see the image on the right, A and B, no, slightly more magnified here at the bottom. So yung gram-negative stain niya, red, diba? And then we have the morphology, rods, and yan. If we look at the clinical significance, no, uh, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, we can see the list here, it will cause bacterial disease in a wide variety of hosts. So it can go to large and small ruminants, pigs, horses, dogs and cats, mink, chinchilla, reptiles, various animal species. So marami ng species or hosts na report yung Pseudomonas aeruginosa. No? And if you look at the disease that it produces, most of them, no, they are superficial, meaning that they can be found on the skin or externally, no, in the mammary gland. Uh, it can be seen in the ears, in the eyes. But there are also some cases wherein we see them in the lungs, in the respiratory tract, and then even in the joints, no, arthritis, pwede rin in the GI. And so it causes enteritis. So Pseudomonas can go into the different organs. No? Pero ito yung mga common diseases, no? So, makikita natin siya sa abscess. And then in sheep and goats, there's a specific name, which is your green disease or the skin infection in sheep. We'll see an example of that later kung bakit green wool ang tawag sa kanya. And then we have ear, eye infection. In dogs and cats, it is very common to encounter Pseudomonas in the ears, no? So it causes external ear infection. So there's otitis externa, and then you have a variety of other diseases, no? Pwede rin siya sa reptiles, no? Causes necrotic disease. And then other animals, uh, pwede siyang maka-infect ng burn wounds, pwedeng diarrhea, genital, or nosocomial infections. So for the virulence factors, this bacteria has a carbohydrate-containing capsule, which allows it to thrive in biofilms. So I don't know if I've mentioned this before, yung biofilms, no, but these are ways of the bacteria to protect itself. So meron siyang capsule that surrounds a community of bacteria. So, pwede siyang mag-survive in harsh conditions. And then, if you look at the picture on the right, this is the green wool, no? So, this is skin infection with Pseudomonas aeruginosa in sheep. So, the pigment is produced by the bacteria, kaya nagkakaroon ng green, and nasistain yung wool, no? Then all members are motile by a polar flagella. So here's an polar flagella. When we say polar, di ba, ibig sabihin, it is only present on one end. And then it also has pili or fimbrial adhesins for attachment. So since gram-negative bacteria, kailangan niya ng adhesins, no? Or meron siyang adhesins. These have an affinity for the glycoproteins on epithelial cells for attachment. Some adhesins also have affinity for mucin. These are what we call non-adhesins. And some of them have an affinity for chloride channel proteins. No? Then we have the capsule na mention na natin kanina yung biofilm formation ng Pseudomonas. Then yung cell wall, since gram-negative siya, meron siyang LPS or lipid A. And then the iron acquiring system. So do you recall what is the name of what is the term that we use for iron acquiring system? So can anyone answer in the chat? No? What do we call the iron acquiring system or yung molecules no, that are involved in this? It starts with the letter S. May term tayo na uh, minention. Ayan. So, si Crystal Lee, sabi niya, siderophores. Correct. So, the siderophores, they are the acquiring system of the bacteria. And in Pseudomonas, we have two examples, specific examples, which is your piocellin and pyovertin. Pseudomonas also releases these exotoxins. So, for example, exotoxin A inhibits proteins. SNT interrupts cell function relying on the actin. And then you have exotoxin U, which is cytotoxic. And then adenylate cyclase that increases CAMP to damaging levels. So if you remember your ATP production, no? So um yung enzyme na yan is normally present, but the bacteria emulates it to kind of overwork the bacteria or the host cell. May mga nasa meeting room. Okay, let's see. Um, all right. So, apart from those virulence factors, the bacteria produces bacteriocins and pigments. No? So yung bacteriocin in specific for Pseudomonas is the piocins. The piocins are useful for tracing epidemics within the hospital environment, so they can leave traces of this and we can use them for tracking the bacteria. Uh, but this is also the defense mechanism of your Pseudomonas other bacteria. No? So it will use this to kill other bacteria, the piocins. And then you have the piocyanins. So itong piocyanins, isa din tong favorite topic about Pseudomonas kasi uh, it has toxic activity and it reacts with oxygen to form reactive oxygen radicals. No? So parang defense mechanism din ng bacteria yung piocyanins. It's interesting kasi meron siyang iba't ibang kulay, no? So it produces the pigments. So here we see on the right the different colors that the bacteria can produce. So for example, we have on the left blue-green, that's piocyanin, and then you have greenish yellow, that's pyoverdin, red, which is pyorubin, and yung dark brown, which is pyomelanin. So we can use this pigmentation for laboratory identification. So a lot of the times, if you see this pigment, it's most likely your Pseudomonas aeruginosa. No? So notice that this pigment diffuses on the agar, di ba? So hindi siya yung pigment ng colony, right? So siya yung napoproduce, it is excreted by the bacteria or it's released by into the environment. So it appears to be diffused in or nandun siya sa agar, no? And reactive oxygen radicals are toxic to eukaryotic and prokaryotic organisms, and they are shown to inhibit lymphocyte proliferation. So it's a defense mechanism mainly by the bacteria. Then your Pseudomonas is very ubiquitous, meaning we can find them in many places. It lives in soil and water, can be found in feces of normal animals, and they are considered as transient flora of the intestines. Although we find them in the intestines, they are not considered to be a member of normal flora. So hindi sila talaga dapat. Their transmission is either environmental or endogenous exposure, and most infections are secondary to compromised host defenses. So, a lot of the times, if the animal has an imbalance, let's say in the microbiome or the total microbial population in the skin or in different parts of the body, such as the gut, no? Hindi naman sterile ang gut, 'di ba? So, yung mga areas na 'yan, kadalasan, if Pseudomonas is there, it means that there was a disruption with the normal flora, or the animal was immunocompromised. Okay? So, Pseudomonas can cause infection in almost any location, and it does not cause illness in healthy hosts. So, when there is a disruption of normal flora, it is almost antimicrobial agents. No? So, we've been studying microbiome for some time, and we noticed that if there is a slight um, if there is antimicrobial administration, or if we give antibiotics to the animal, we notice that the shift in the bacterial population is so parang siya, no, dramatic siya. Parang ang bilis mag-shift ng antimicrobial population pag nagbigay ka ng antibiotics. Eh, sorry. Ang bilis mag-shift ng microbial population pag nagbigay ka ng antibiotic. So, ang mangyayari nun, yung normal flora, nawawala talaga sila, no? So, napaka-important nito sa skin disease and gut health, no? So, the Pseudomonas, it can contaminate areas of the body with reduced numbers of normal flora. And the resistance of the aeruginosa to antibiotics allows it to replace normal flora. So it will colonize the site and will destroy the tissues due to the exotoxin, pyocyanin, and inflammation. So here's an example of the otitis externa. So you've probably seen an example of this in your pets, no, or in other animals. Um, so very common siya sa ear infection. So it's impossible to prevent exposure to Pseudomonas because it easily grows. It's non-fastidious. And in veterinary hospitals, it is very common to find this bacteria. Another thing that contributes to the resistance of your Pseudomonas is the biofilms, no? So they thrive in wet, poorly aerated environments and can be seen in surgery areas, support bags, hoses on anesthetic machines, and solutions. So for the lab diagnosis, treatment, and control, they can be easily isolated on blood agar and they can easily be grown kasi aerobe lang siya, no? Hindi niya kailangan ng special environment to grow. The colonies appear large, greater than 1 millimeter, gray, and rough, with zones of hemolysis and a characteristic odor. So if you look at this picture, we can see here on this part, we can see the hemolysis. Then we see the pigment here, yung pigmentation. And then we can see the gray colonies, large gray colonies. If we, in person, no, this will smell fruit-like or what we call grape-like odor. So, yun yung characteristic of your Pseudomonas aeruginosa. One other thing is that this bacteria is known to be resistant to multiple drugs or yung tinatawag na MDR, multiple drug resistance. or multi-drug resistance, no? Okay. And this bacteria, no, it will be resistant to kung may MDR siya, no? So ibig sabihin, hindi siya mamamatay sa multiple na antibiotic, no? So here we see a example of a plate. Do you remember what this test is called? Apart from isosensi test, what's the other name for this test? Do you remember? Your micro one. In the chat, you can tell me what's the other name for this test? AST, okay? Antimicrobial sensitivity test or antibiotic sensitivity test. Okay. What else? What's the other name? There's another name. Letter K. Starts with the letter K. Nakalimutan mo na Dan. Okay, thank you. It's the Kirby-Bauer test. Okay. So what happens here is that we have these discs which are impregnated with your antibiotic, and then we place them on a plate that was streaked with a lawn of the bacteria, no? Or yung lawn method yung ginamit. And then we place the disc on top. Tapos, we allow it to grow. So, if there is growth around the disc, what does that mean? Does it mean susceptible or resistant? If there is growth around the disc, what does it mean? Okay, thank you. Si Lowell, si JC, Carmela. Okay, correct. Resistant siya, no? So here we are looking at how many? One, two, three, four, five, no? Five discs, in which the bacteria was able to grow around, no? So this means that this bacteria is resistant to multiple types of antibiotics. And then it's only sensitive, merong zone of inhibition, right? It's only sensitive to one antibiotic, no? So why is that the case? No? So the Pseudomonas aeruginosa has a natural ability to extrude the antibiotic out of its cell membrane, right? So the permeability barrier of the Pseudomonas cell wall, it contains actually the porins, no? Yung porin, P-O-R-I. Eh, sorry. Na-reply ko lang sa isang tao. Okay, porins. The cell wall contains the porins, and this is one of the main mechanisms by which Pseudomonas is able to be resistant to antibiotics. So the products encoded by plasmid-based genes, or what is known as R plasmids, also contribute to the resistance of Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Okay, so those are the two reasons. For the antibiotics that are recommended, so you want to use antibiotics that can be easily distributed to the target tissue. So for example, your soft tissue or the skin, you may want to choose antibiotics that will be distributed easily to the skin, no? So when you take your pharmacology, you want to be able to understand that, no? So there are antibiotics na they can spread well to the skin or sa ibang organs, no? So yung pag-select ng antibiotic, correct antibiotic, um, part yan, no? Yung distribution that you need to consider. So, soft tissue or canine urinary tract, yung recommendation is tetracycline kasi it achieves concentration sufficient to kill most isolates. Okay. Then, ayan, so oral naman to. And then, ito meron ding otic preparations or topical. So, yung sa ears, sa otitis externa, we need to use ear drops, no? Otic preparations. For example, these are some antibiotics that are commonly used. Okay, any questions with Pseudomonas? Okay. So if you have questions, you can write it sa chat. In the meantime, we will proceed to genus Burkholderia. So for genus Burkholderia, there are over 60 species belonging to this genus. Most of them live in the soil or produce disease in plants. There are two members that produce disease in humans, which is your Cepacia and Gladioli. And gladioli is more commonly seen in compromised patients, for example, in cystic fibrosis, chronic granulomatous disease, immunosuppression, or in nosocomial infections. In veterinary medicine, there are two species. You have your pseudomallei, which is the cause of melioidosis, and malei, which is the cause of glanders in equids. Hello. I think. And then you have your let's start first with Malay. So for this species Malay, your facultative they are considered as facultative intracellular bacteria, and they cause what is called systemic pyogranulomatous disease in horses, also called glanders. No. So this is a bacterial infection that is considered to be endemic in Asia, Africa, and South America. So when we say endemic, it means that it is always present, it is widespread, no? It is well distributed. There are natural infections seen in dogs, camels, horses, goats, sheep, and felids. And even guinea pigs and hamsters can be infected. So there is acute, chronic, or latent disease. Here's an example of a horse that has glands. So the bacteria, it produces these pyogranulomatous lesions, no? So they become enlarged, they are purulent, and then over time, they will become solidified, no? So nagkakaroon ng granuloma formation. And if they are left untreated, no? So the granuloma is a way for the body to isolate the bacteria, no? So to prevent the spread of the bacteria. And then here is a camel that has mucopurulent discharge from both nostrils from being infected with your your Burkholderia malae. And then they will produce these glanderous lesions in the choanae of the camel. Choanae or choanae. Okay. Here we see a histopathology of the pyogranule. So what happens in a pyogranuloma is that there is a central core of necrotic debris that is admixed with fibrin and intact and degenerate neutrophils. And this will be surrounded by a collagenous capsule with lymphocytes and plasma cells. So if you look at this image right here, no, so these are mini or what we call microgranulomas or small granulomas. What happens here is that this area here is filled with dead cells, necrotic debris or dead cells. And then this will be mixed with your neutrophils, those inflammatory cells. No. Now, the body will try to isolate this or encapsulate it with a capsule, no, a collagenous capsule, so that it will prevent the spread of this bacteria. So it's also trying to contain the inflammation. No? So this is a reaction of the body to the bacterial disease. So this is a section from the nasal cavity of a horse with B. malleus infection. And here we see that there is leukocytoclastic vasculitis and many vessels, and their lumens contain thrombi. Okay. And then we have what is known as the T3SS and T4SS. So these are the secretion systems of your mallee. We have talked about T3SS before, and then the B mallee also has the type 4 secretion system. So for this, the T4SS is unique because it has the ability to translocate not only the proteins or the toxins, but also to transport DNA. So yun yung kaibahan niya sa type 3 secretion system. And then T3SS has been hypothesized to play a role in the intracellular bacterial survival of the macrophages, no? Inside macrophages. So yung type 3 secretion system, if you recall, it injects the effector molecules inside of the host cell, and then it mediates the endocytosis, diba? So kapag naka-endocytose na siya dun sa sa host, no, sa host cell, edi pwede na siya mag-survive nun sa loob ng macrophage, diba? If you recall your macrophages, diba, what's the function? So, ano ba yung function ng macrophage? Kailangan niyang i-digest, 'di ba? Ida-digest niya yung mga foreign agents. So yung T3SS will help the bacteria survive inside of the cell. And then we have another species. So yung kanina Malay. This one is pseudo-Malay. So pseudo-Malay causes melioidosis, or what is known as Whitmore's disease. This superficially resembles glanders, so it's very similar, but it needs to be differentiated. So the pseudo-Malay has a wide host range. So it doesn't only affect the horses, no? So pwede rin siya sa ibang animals. So for example, here we see in this picture an example of a bear which was infected with your pseudomallay. The agent or the bacteria is considered as a saprophyte, and prevalence is unaffected by elimination of infected animals. So, parang wala masyadong means to control this bacteria kasi nasa environment lang siya. So, it's from exposure to soil and water. No? So, I remember, I think, may mga episodes na tumataas yung pseudomallay infection, mostly because of exposure to soil and water. So for example, pag may floods, no? But that's in Western countries. And then the bacteria has been seen in some amoeba, or what is known as acanthamoeba species. So considered siya as an endosymbiont of amoebic trophozoites. No? So in this stage of the amoeba, the acanthamoeba specifically, this bacteria can be found. So parang siya, nag-exist siya together with the acanthamoeba. So isang way din yun kung paano siya nagsispread. So for the lab diagnosis, the bacteria can be cultured in blood or glycerol agar. So you take the nodular contents, so you swab it, and then you can examine it for gram-negative rods through microscopy or immunofluorescence, and any suspect isolates should be submitted to a qualified referral laboratory. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, parang siya, no? So, may, uh, pagka merong Burkholderia infection, you need to report it and confirm it. And then differentiation must be done, so of Malay and pseudo-Malay. And then other means of diagnosis, you have ELISA, PCR. Treatment is through antibiotics, syempre, and then it's treatable. So glanders is considered as treatable. Pero yung melioidosis, this is more difficult to treat. So it's considered expensive, prolonged, and often unsuccessful. So you can see this in some companion and zoo animals, and you have to verify the treatment, no, by laboratory tests. Kasi maano nga siya, no? Matagal siyang matreat yung melioidosis or the pseudo-malay. Okay? So, any questions so far with your Burkholderia? Walang question? Okay. So we'll proceed to the next topic, which is your Taylorelia. So, sa kabilang class, hindi ko masyado na-discuss yung Haemophilus, but yeah, hopefully we have enough time. So you'll notice that yung Burkholderia, the um, yung Malay sa horses siya, no? Yung Taylorelia sa horse din siya. So it's considered as a gram-negative non-motile rod, and this is seen in equids or in horses. They are considered as the natural host. There are two known species, which is your Equigenitalis and Acinigenitalus. So for Equigenitalis, the name of the disease is contagious equine metritis or CEM. And so if you look at the name, no, sa reproductive tract siya ng female horses. And then Taylorelia is Acini genitalis is associated with genital tract of stallions or jacks. Pero mas important yung equigenitalis. So, um, siya yung causative agent of an acute suppurative self-limiting disease called CEM or contagious equine metritis. So from the name, no, it's contagious because very, very contagious siya, nakakahawa siya. And then it goes into the reproductive tract, it causes metritis. This was first described in Europe in 1977, and it is considered as a reportable disease in the United States, mostly because it is so hard to manage and to eliminate. And so if there is an occurrence of this, you need to report it now. It causes temporary infertility or rarely abortion and considered to be highly contagious. So the uh, carrier state, no, it can be long-term and it is asymptomatic and can follow low initial infection. So sometimes the males, no, they can be the carriers or the long-term carriers, and they will develop no clinical signs. So if it's in the male and they are infected, they will have uh, asymptomatic infection. So hindi alam or hindi napapansin, walang signs. And then in the female, there's also a asymptomatic infection. This has significant economic implications because of the cost of outbreak investigation, testing, and loss of reproductive efficiency. So these are 0.8 by 5 to 6 micrometer rods or cocobacilli. So here's the gram stain. So if you notice na nandito na tayo sa gram-negative bacteria, diba? So magiging red na sila or yeah, pink pink or red in color. They exhibit bipolar staining. They have a typical cell wall of a gram-negative bacteria, so may LPS siya, and inconsistently fimbriated in culture. The outer membrane is covered by a capsule, and the immunodominant outer membrane protein resembles Bordetella and Neisseria. Taylorelia is considered as a fastidious organism, so that means that it is difficult to grow in the laboratory. And the temperature is about 35 to 37 degrees. It's considered as microaerophilic, so you have to provide a low oxygen environment for this bacteria to grow. Then the agar is 5% chocolate sheep blood. So chocolate agar is simply blood agar that's been heated to 80 degrees. No? So that's what is used. And the use of antimicrobials can help in the selectivity of the organism. So sometimes some other organisms can interfere with the identification because it causes overgrowth. And so if you apply the antimicrobial, it might help the bacteria to grow. And then it may take 14 days for the bacterial colonies to grow. So at least 2 to 3 days of incubation. And in order to declare a negative test, the plates need to be incubated for at least 7 days. The colonies can vary in size and they can appear shiny, smooth, and grayish yellow, and they are susceptible to a broad range of antimicrobials but without any distinct pattern. So there are two main biotypes, the streptomycin resistant and non-resistant streptomycin. Then for the specific identification, you can perform molecular methods. So here's an example of the shiny, smooth, and grayish yellow colonies of your Taylorelia. So the equine genital tract, that's the only known natural host. Both males and females can carry the organism asymptomatically. So the mares, we can find the bacteria in the clitoral fossa in the sinuses. And in the males, they are surface contaminants of the external genitalia, the urogenital membranes, including the urethra, the fossa, the sinus, and the penile sheath. So for the transmission, this is considered communicable, especially in breeding operations. So if there is a breeder, they have to make sure that they are negative for this parang STD ng horses. No? So it has an extremely high transmission rate. And foal-borns of infected mares can be infected and can be considered as chronic carriers. So pwede rin na magkaroon ng indirect transmission through hands of the handler or fomites or even by artificial insemination or AI. The clinical disease can be variable, so pwedeng asymptomatic nga, then pwede rin acute or overt. And the period is about 2 to 14 days incubation. There may be no fever or other signs, and mostly dun lang sa reproductive tract ng female yung may lesions, no, in acute cases. So what happens is there's mucopurulent endometritis, so there will be inflammation of the uterus. And then there's variable amounts of discharge within days kasi meron kang pus formation. So within 2 to 12 days, and damage occurs in the uterine epithelium, which is covered with the neutrophilic exudate. So if we look at this image on the right, you can see here the damage on the epithelium, no, on the surface, 'di ba? Yung epithelium, nandun siya parati dun sa surface ng mucosa or even the skin, 'di ba? So, yun yung ang unang part ng mucosa, unang layer, right? And if this is damaged, no, so we can see the bleeding or the areas which look like they are eroded or ulcerated. And then the mononuclear infiltrate or the inflammatory cells, no, will be present in the endometrial stroma. And then epithelium can be eroded or degenerative. And with treatment, this can be resolved, no? So, um, pagka naman you give the antibiotic, you can still, the endometrium can still repair itself and it will be complete. So it will not impair breathing in future, in after treatment. So there can be in pregnant animals, there can be placental infection, foal infection, but abortion is rare. It may be difficult for the female to get pregnant, no, if it's infected with this bacteria. In chronic cases, there is obvious discharge, mild inflammation of the uterus, and um, ayan, pagka carrier state asymptomatic. So it's reported in Europe, Africa, Japan, Australia, North and South America. And the most recent case was in the United States in 2011, where a stallion was tested positive. So for for the lab diagnosis, the serum antibodies for can last for 3 to 7 weeks in mares post-acute infection. However, the antibody titers are unrelated to carrier status. For example, in stallions, um, if it's infected, it will not mount an antibody response and shows limited value of the serology. So um, for confirmatory diagnosis, demonstration of the organism from genital tract by culture, Gram stain. And then this one is important kasi this is considered as a fastidious organism. So it's very sensitive to transport. So pwede siyang mamatay, no? So you need to provide Amy's transport media with charcoal. And PCR is available but not routinely performed. Antibiotics and disinfectants can be used. So ito yung topical treatment, no? And there is no vaccine. So for females, we can use 4% chlorhexidine, that's in mares, and then a liberal application of nitrofurazone ointment, specifically 0.2%. Then cleansing of the urethral fossa, sinus, and penis with 2% chlorhexidine solution. This is in stallions. In the females, we can also perform ablation of the clitoral sinus for female carriers, and uteral infusions can be done for the infected females. Okay. Sige. So that's the last part of the Taylorelia. For the Haemophilus, I will just emphasize a couple of things, no? So Haemophilus, there's a larger family, which is Pasteurelliaceae, and then there's three genera, Pasteurella, Actinobacillus, and Haemophilus. And then these are gram-negative rods, and they have a very specific characteristic, which is satellitism. So yung satellitism, what happens here is that this bacteria needs a helper bacteria in order for it to grow. So itong naka-cross dito, this is your Staphylococcus aureus. It's a helper bacteria. And the Haemophilus is actually growing in the quadrant, no, within the this space, no? And that is because this bacteria requires another bacteria to be present so that it will release the X factor or and V factor or factor 10 and factor 5, which is specifically your hemin and NAD, NADP, so that it will grow. But that's in blood agar. But you can also use chocolate agar for this bacteria. Kasi heating the blood agar to 80 degrees to make the chocolate agar will release the factor 10 and factor 5. Okay. So, isa yun sa mga characteristics of your Haemophilus. So, medyo mahirap siya i-grow, pero it's possible naman. There are a few species that are important, no? Your Parasuis and Gallinarum. Pero yung pinaka-importante is the Haemophilus parasuis, na ngayon ay renamed na siya to Glycerella parasuis. So it's been reclassified to Glycerella parasuis. Okay? So this one is very common in swine. So yun yung emphasis natin sa kanya. And then, it can cause meningoencephalitis, polycerasitis, and polyarthritis. Okay? So, um, yun lang yung gusto kong i-emphasize sa glycerin. And the clinical signs, they are not pathognomonic, but must be differentiated with E. coli. So, very similar clinical signs to E. coli. And then, febrile meningitis is only seen in Glycerella parasuis. So yun yung nagde-differentiate. This is what differentiates E. coli from Glycerella parasuis, the presence of the fibrinopurulent meningitis. Okay? So the other parts you can review by yourself. Okay. So that's it for this topic. Do you have any questions? Okay. Magku-quiz ako sana eh. Kaso lang. Huwag niyo screenshot yun na. Baka screenshot niyo. Okay. So I'll just screenshot your attendance and then some reminders for next week. We will have our exam on Monday for the lecture. So please come on time. I think my announcement si Doc Gian. No? So, I'm nagsa-screenshot lang ako ng attendance. Excuse me. Just be yeah. Did you guys see the announcement from So for my part, I will have multiple choice and essay. So just prepare for those two types of questions. May last page na lang ako na screenshot. Okay. Okay. Okay na yata. All right. 7 p.m. ba yung exam? I believe so. Yeah, I think it is 7 o'clock. Kung hindi ako nagkakamali. Check natin yung post ni Doc Gian. um, classroom. Parang examinee number. May examinee number. Hmm. Okay. Hi. Okay. It doesn't say. Pero mukhang, oh, I think it's 7 p.m. now. If there's any changes, we'll post it in the Google Classroom. Okay? Any more questions? So if you don't have any questions, you can go. Um, wait lang. May nag-chat kanina na marami daw sila sa isang computer because of poor connectivity. Okay. Copy. Okay, thank you. Have a good weekend and good luck sa exam. Saan magsasubmit ng exercise 5 and 6? Hindi ba ako nag-post? Wala ba ako linagay? Kung wala pa ako linagay, sige, lagyan ko. Thank you.